Hey guys, Jace Peterson with Team Bagley Baits. I got to catch up with Jeff Gustafson and Drew Benton as they're about to start their tournament season. I asked them a few questions regarding crankbaits, of course, what their goals are for the season, but before we get into that, let's check in and see what they did in the off season.
This off season for me was a lot like past off seasons. I spent a lot of time in the deer woods, chasing big whitetails, growing them in Southwest Georgia. That's what I really enjoy doing. It recharges my batteries, and fishing and hunting, they collide in a way that, I always, whenever I have a good hunting season, it always translates to a good fishing season because there's a lot of the same things that go on. You're hunting a fish out there on the water every time you go out. So it's always good to have that mindset, and it always translates to a good fishing season.
This fall, got to go to Australia. Best trip I've ever been on in my life, fishing or otherwise. My wife Shelby got to go too, and spent 10 days fishing for barramundi with my buddy Carl Jacobson. Fished a few tournaments actually, did pretty decent, but just had a great time. Awesome people over there, good fishing, and it was a fun trip. The last month or so, we've had some pretty good ice out on Lake of the Woods, so I've been hanging around home. Ice fishing quite a bit, catching lots of walleyes, perch. Haven't really got on a good lake trout bite yet, but I will at some point this winter. But yeah, it's been pretty easy to go out in the afternoons and throw a buckshot spoon down and catch dinner. So I've been doing quite a bit of that. And then obviously getting ready to go. We got a new season coming up here. So you can see I'm sitting in my new boat right now. Been giving her the last few days. I'm getting on the road here pretty soon. Organizing tackle and getting this boat rigged up for another season on the Elite Series.
All anglers have goals coming into a new season. That could be crafting a new technique, maybe winning a blue trophy, or winning AOI. Let's see what Gussie and Drew have to say.
Number one, catch a limit every day of the year. And I actually did it last year. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And it ended up being a pretty good year. I had a bit of a rough start, which, I generally have a harder time down in Florida, down south. But one of these times I'm going to hit down there. I have a few times in the past. And, it's nice to get off to a good start and just not have that pressure, because it's pressure every day. You never want to miss the classic or, miss having a good event. So the last 3 tournaments are up north in smallmouth country. So obviously those will be up my alley. Looking forward to that. But, just surviving and, try and hit on a couple of these ones down south early in the year and just get off to a good start.
When you talk about goals for 2023, it has to start out with, qualifying for the Classic. That's the #1 goal of, all of us out here on the Elite Series. But then the 2 that really hit home, that AOI trophy and that Classic trophy. Those 3 right there would be my top 3. And if you can mix in a win and get a blue trophy somewhere in there, that's always a positive too. But if I had to, pick 3 goals, it would be AOI, the Classic, and just qualify for the Classic.
This is a Bagley Baits video, so obviously we got to talk crankbaits. Let's shoot it right back to Drew and Gussie and see what bait they're most looking forward to using this season.
One Bagley crankbait I'm really excited about throwing again this year is the Sunny Bee. It's got a tight action, it's a small profile, and to me it's really a finesse crankbait that gets you big bites. It's going to get you bites when it's tough, when it's cold. It's going to get you bites on pressure fish, and it's a good plug to have in your hand when they're feeding. It's just a bait that's all around fish catcher, and it's one of those baits that I can pick up whenever I'm struggling or whenever I'm blasting them out. I have the confidence that it's going to get me a bite. I threw it a ton in the Classic last year. It'll be on my deck this year in the Classic, and it's one of those crankbaits I have in my box tied on 100% of the time.
For me, the crankbait I'm looking forward to using most this season, probably the shallow Sunny Bee. I got a couple samples of it last year, and at the Lake Chickamauga event in particular, I put quite a few of my fish in the boat with that bait right there, little red guy. Always a good color in the spring down south and on the Tennessee River lakes. But yeah, these are just fish catchers. They're, tight action, really good cold water crankbait. Obviously at the Classic, I'm going to push trying to do the jig in a a jerk shad deal that I caught them on there a couple years ago, but that's a really good crankbait place, and baits like this are gonna play there, so you know, something to have in the arsenal. But I just put this box of Sunny B baits together, you know, over the last few days, and got some of the regular diving ones, you know, some craw colors, some shad colors, and then some of the shallow Sunny B's. So good crankbait, just an all-around good fish catcher, really good for smallmouths up north too.
Both Drew and Gussie mentioned the Sunny B. Gussie mentioned the shallow, and Drew just mentioned the regular Sunny B. Now the Sunny B has been out for many years, but the shallow version is new for 2023. Both baits the guys have used for the last couple of years. You saw some clips of Gussie catching a few fish on Chickamauga with the shallow, and I think Drew and Gussie will probably have these baits tied on for the Classic this year. We know what baits they're most looking forward to throwing this season, but now I want to know the process that goes through their brain, where to throw it, when to throw it, and the colors they choose.
Cranking's all about being able to cover water, and that's the advantage to using these kinds of baits. You know, you're constantly moving and looking for biters, finding fish. And you know, the reality for us when we're out fishing on the Elite Series is we get 3 days to practice. So most of these bodies of water are pretty big. You know, you can only cover so much ground in 3 days. So you got to be pretty efficient as far as finding fish and catching them on the tournament days. So that's why you see crankbaits are used by so many anglers, and you know, just about every tournament throughout the season, there's going to be guys that have good events throwing crankbaits. So you know, that's it for me, just being able to cover water.
My thought process when throwing a crankbait is, number one, I'm covering water. I'm trying to get a reaction bite if, you know, the fish are real finicky. And the other thing is, it's a bait that they can't grab hold of and let go of. So you're going to have, you know, a high hookup percentage on that bait. They can't come up and investigate it and mouth it. 9 times out of 10, they mouth it. You've got them hooked. And it's just a bait that all around is very, very natural looking. It deflects off cover, especially Bagley's balsa. It's going to deflect off cover real naturally, more naturally than a plastic bait. And it's just going to get you those extra bites on those days where it can be extremely tough, or you can be fishing extremely pressured bodies of water. The crankbait's a fantastic tool.
When it comes to picking crankbait colors, you know, you can look in my box here again, and I've got some craw colors and some shad colors. There's a few kind of, you know, bluegill, sunfish colors in there as well, but for the most part, it's all about, you know, when I'm early in the season, I'm going to throw these crayfish colored baits a lot. Just they're proven. And they work. And then, you know, if you get on a deal where there's a lot of shad, then you know, some of these more natural shad patterns will be good too. But it's sort of one or the other. You know, if I feel like shad's the predominant forage or bait fish, you know, I'm going to go with one of those sort of white colors. And if I feel like it's crayfish, I'm banging the bottom a lot. Then, you know, those craw and reds are my go-to.
My outlook on crankbait colors is very simple. It's all about the forage in the lake that you're fishing. Early season, you know, most lakes throughout the country have crawfish. Early season, I like your reds, your browns, orange. That's the color whenever that water temperature is cold. That's the color of the crawfish that time of year. As you get into spring and around the shad spawn, I might go with a shad pattern if the predominant forage is a shad on that lake. If it's not shad, if the predominant, you know, forage is maybe bluegill or perch, I'll go with a bluegill pattern. But it's just really simple. It's just matching the hatch on the lake that you're on, and trying to entice that fish to eat something that they're used to eating on a daily basis.
Now I know, and you know, a little more about Drew Benton and Jeff Gustafson, especially regarding Bagley crankbaits. The baits that they discuss will be linked in the description below. Make sure to follow along their season on their social media channels and Bagley Baits Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.